Hello, hello. Hope you guys are all just as hyped for today's space as I am. I'm August, marketing lead at Nibiru. I get to work on everything from socials, content creation, co-marketing initiatives with our ecosystem apps, events, and just really all the fun things that marketers get to do. With me is the man, the legend, the divine, Unique. How's it going today, Unique?
Doing pretty well. Yeah, it's good to see familiar faces from the Discord community calls.
I know, right? We'll see Stefan, Daniel, CryptoPop. Yeah, so, it's pretty crazy to think about how we're already halfway through November and 2025 is just around the corner. I'm not sure, if you feel the same way, Unique, but this year has just flown by for me. And it's probably because we've been busy cooking and just ticking off all those goals that we had set up at the beginning of this year. So what is it that we'll be covering in today's space?
Yeah, I didn't have anything in particular in mind. We'll just catch up on, general developments with Nibiru. I'll do a sneak peek of some of the, upcoming progress on the EVM and other things we're excited about in the ecosystem. Yeah, also a part of it will just be rehashing there's a lot of things we explained or already revealed in the Discord community chill sessions that a lot of people don't know in the community. So some of it is just like catching everyone up. So yeah, that's what I had in mind.
Cool. Earlier this year, there's been news released on some of the rapid developments for Nibiru's EVM. What is Nibiru EVM and why has that been such a huge focus for the team?
Yeah, if you recall our roadmap graphic from like late last year and also early this year, around the time of the mainnet, it went over quite a few things, right? Which was bridge connections, development on a couple dApps, both from like the foundation side and then also like to onboard some of the ecosystem, parallel execution, and then, of course, like the Nibiru EVM. So you're able to address all of those, basically. Of course, the EVM portion being like a much bigger undertaking overall because it's a big upgrade. But essentially, Nibiru EVM is a fully backward compatible upgrade to Nibiru that makes it an EVM-equivalent execution environment. So essentially, that means that it supports the Ethereum JSON RPC interface. So you can write contracts in Solidity or Viper. Usually that's Solidity, right? And then deploy that bytecode and use tools like Ethers, MetaMask, and everything out of the box with no code changes. So that sounds simple, but like, what does that kind of mean? Is essentially that enables you to have, Uniswap deployments, Aave deployments, basically anything from the Ethereum L1 or L2 ecosystem can a lot easier interact with the chain, both in terms of like explorers and the applications, but basically that it means that the surface of users and apps that you can interact with grows, tenfold or more, right? So since development began earlier this year, that's been like our top priority from, on the building side of the chain. I guess the development started around halfway through the year when we first started hinting at usable releases in June. So since then, we've been focused on bringing it to the point of, security audits and mainnet readiness. The strategy here was to keep releasing it so that builders could constantly use the Nibiru EVM releases like under our feet and give a lot of like real-time feedback or help us figure out which things to prioritize or eliminate from scope before like, developing something in isolation and then just releasing it, right? So you guys don't get to see that as much from like the mainnet front end unless you are curious and click over to Testnet. Yeah, so there's been huge progress there. I mean, I guess I'll touch on that a little bit later on some like the more specific dates. But another part you touched on was why has that been a focus? So predictably so, at least from our side, but on the few chains we've seen add EVM support that already run another VM, which isn't a case. In this case, I'm referring to maybe Say Network and Injective, because both of those have EVM and Wasm VM, right? Adding EVM support has positively impacted their usage and utility by a lot. I haven't checked this figure in a while, but the last time I checked, there's several billion transactions between those two chains, and more than 90% of the transactions are EVM, even though that VM was added much later. So it's if that's not just one indicator, like if you return to the earliest point in like Nibiru's project history, like way before it launched and was just forming in 2022, Wasm was like the second most prominent smart contract layer after Ethereum's EVM in terms of user adoption. Yeah, so Terra was pulling ahead of Solana for a short time at one point, right? So it was becoming very popular to build with Rust-based contracts as a clear choice and direction for security or performance. But in spite of those advantages, it became more and more clear over time that the EVM was still very, very dominant and had a lot of maybe entrenched user adoption that it made a lot of sense. Like if we were thinking of just what's the best thing to spend our time on as a development team, what could bring the most users, most liquidity, it seemed like an obvious choice. And I think that was part of the positioning with like why Binance Smart Chain is how you see it or Tron is how you see it. Yeah, that's my 2 cents on that.
Gotcha. And then earlier you also mentioned parallel execution. I think it'd be great for you to define and just kind of go into what that is exactly.
Sure. So by default, most blockchains you see process transactions in serial, as we say, meaning they go one after the other. So one way parallel execution is essentially making it such that non-conflicting transactions can be processed at the same time, which basically just allows the chain to handle a lot more throughput of transactions. So it's one way to increase the performance. So we actually did develop that and get it to, I think it's just sitting functionally on a branch on GitHub. I don't think we'll put that right in the V2 upgrade initially, because we found that it's more like there were certain aspects of it that might make it more error prone, and we didn't want it to slow down the timeline of the EVM. But essentially that's already code complete too. So just to recap, Nibiru is still on its V1 for mainnet. It's gotten a couple upgrades that are not, major upgrades. So EVM is part of V2, and then the parallel execution update might be, also part of V2, but just like a slightly later. But yeah, it's code complete and works perfectly. And in case I explain that too complicated, like processing at the same time basically means like, if I were baking a bunch of turkeys and serial is like I have one oven and you just bake one, take it out, bake one, take it out, bake one, take it out. Parallel is if you had multiple ovens, so you could cook several turkeys at the same time, so to speak.
Gotcha. Love everything that's going on here. So what aspect of the EVM upgrade will help apps flourish?
Sure. So I touched on this a little bit earlier with describing why you get a larger surface of users and tools. Essentially, one argument here is there's a lot more people that have, Coinbase wallet and MetaMask and everything than there are that have Kepler and Leap, right? So a big aspect too is EVM assets and the interchain. We have a nice standard that kind of combines those cleanly. So what I'll get into that is for USDC, the main way to get it to Nibiru right now is using cross-chain transfer protocol or CCTP from Circle and bringing it to Noble. And then you have to IBC it over to Nibiru, right? With having the EVM on the chain, we'll essentially be able to connect assets can come over via Circle directly to the chain or also via layer 0 Stargate. So that means it's in one step, people can get assets over as ERC20s, from Solana, from L2s, anything there. And then there's a standard to cleanly turn those into interchain assets. So in some sense, that means like EVM assets can be brought over to the interchain more easily, i.e. to other IBC compatible chains, but also those can be brought over and used on the EVM very cleanly. So that's really good from that means it'll be very easy to bring over like Bitcoin or Frax or Doge or anything like that already exists on other chains without creating additional fragmentation. And then, the other part is just the strength of a blockchain in ours is probably the number of consistent users and ecosystem development. So the fact that it makes it easier to bring more useful applications and yield opportunities and everything like that is one of the main ways it'll help apps flourish. So in some sense, having other apps to compose with.
Gotcha. Thanks for that explanation. I feel like there's so many EVM LTs launching these days, especially when you go to conferences. Like the joke is like there's an L2 being launched every single day. What's the difference between a chain being EVM compatible versus L2, like a rollup or sidechain?
Sure. So I'll kind of answer this from the user perspective. So EVM compatible and EVM equivalent chains, what that means is that they can run smart contract bytecode written for the Ethereum virtual machine or EVM. So this means developers can deploy Ethereum-based apps, usually from Solidity with minimal changes. And, that includes, so examples of this are like Tron, Binance Smart Chain, Say Network, Avalanche C chains, and a whole slew of others. So these chains are independent of Ethereum. They don't share, meaning they don't share its security or rely on the same consensus. And to clarify, when people say consensus, there's a term that gets thrown around a lot, but without being explained. Consensus is how everyone agrees on which transactions are valid and in what order. But yeah, so to make sure that everyone in the network has the same view of what happened. Whereas execution is when you actually apply the transactions against the blockchain binary and update the system and actually move money around and run the program, so to speak. So those types of chains do not share consensus with Ethereum, even though they can execute in the same manner. A lot of the different kinds actually have are quite different between like rollups, side chains, like the examples you mentioned. But I guess from a user perspective, there aren't that different from EVM compatible L1s for a user, right? And I back that up with saying like you still need to bridge from Ethereum to an L2 in the same way that you need to bridge from Ethereum to an EVM compatible L1, right? Users can also still utilize Ethereum native apps so long as that application has a redeployment or is developed in such a way that you can use it across multiple chains. So like in the case of Uniswap or GMX, there's usually a drop down where you can switch between, Arbitrum or ETH-L1 and use different RPCs. So in some sense, I don't think to the end user, there's not a huge difference, even though the technical details can be like way different under the hood, whether that's for a ZK rollup or if you have a sequencer or things like that.
I see. Wow, it's really insightful.
Sure. So I guess the short answer would be likely early 2025. So the recent rationale behind that is I would guess that, so right now we're still doing the second audit, right? So we finished the core code that we wanted to complete for bringing in EVM, and it's been, running on devnets and testnets for several months, but with us still developing and adding stuff to it. So the mainnet upgrade on the chain may occur, optimistically before like the end of December. Though I see that as likely to be in early January, and that's when we would enter a phase like we've been referring to as mainnet beta. So essentially, applications will begin to like deploy their bytecode. We'll set up a bunch of infrastructure like subgraphs, Oracle connections, the blockchain explorer on mainnet. Switching the web app off of the way where it is now to be like the testnet one, where you can connect the other class of wallets and like handle ERC20 assets. So essentially, there's like a bunch of other things to set up besides just the upgrade. But yeah, I expect the upgrade to be early, like early in the coming year, if not this year, coming up pretty soon. We'll see after the audit how many changes we need to make. And then the actual launch, what I would say is like, what immediately follows the beta. That's when we'd start like really getting more aggressive with like marketing. It kind of hinges on how many technical challenges there are with setting up the infra I just mentioned, and also requires some coordination with the apps, right? Because really the launch of a feature like this is more about the applications launching on top, not just upgrading the chain. But yeah, that should be, January or February. As a project, historically, we've been very accurate with our timelines. We've not slipped any timelines. So that should be a good approximation.
I completely agree with you. I feel like a lot of chains out there, they'll say they'll launch XYZ at this point, and then it just gets delayed for a year or two. And then I also see other chains talk about an EVM upgrade, and, they've been building for years, but, you've been able to accomplish it in such a short period of time. I'm personally really impressed, and I'm really excited for Q1 of 2025. So you guys take note, next year, Q1, there's a lot going on. So keep your eyes peeled. What insight, Amy, can you share about just some recent product developments more broadly?
Sure. So it's still top of mind, I guess. So we had the audits like we touched on. So first we did an audit on the EVM in October. That was basically, it had all of the precompiled contracts that add compatibility between some of the Cosmos SDK modules on Nibiru and the EVM, which is using Go Ethereum. That ran for about 3 weeks and was in October. We just started another one. If you didn't see on the Twitter, that's an open competitive audit with Code Arena. It's actually going on right now for any auditors listening. Go ahead and hop in. There's a big prize pool, so that'll be good. And part of why we wanted to do 2 is just because it's a pretty big feature. So wanted to make sure it's secure and there's nothing wrong there. The other aspect, if you recall, there was an app we refer to as NIBI perps throughout most of the lifecycle of the project, and actually you may have even used it on like incentivized testnet. So that's actually been being formally brought to life as Sai perpetual. So part of that is part of the Nibiru team has been building that out and applied a lot of the feedback that we got, from the past year or so to, and in like early innings of the project that was on testnet to make it something more strategic for like Nibiru's long-term growth, right? So just like as a short recap, it's leverage trading, long or short any asset using USDC or stake NIBI. And the index price will actually come from highly liquid centralized exchanges. So that basically means you can have exposure on an exchange like OKX or Binance and take the other side to hedge or build other strategies with size perps at the same time on Nibiru. So that's actually pretty cool because it basically gives it a lot of the utility that you see on something like GMX, right? And similarly, the LP model it's not based on like an order book where you have to be a market maker or something to use it. You can basically just deposit and then it works like a vault product, right? So essentially you get back an LP token and then you're just going to passively gain from trading fees, right? So that's really cool because it means that you don't need to be like a retail investor, a retail user can pretty easily take part in the application. So like if they didn't want to go long or short, they can kind of just be an LP. And as we've seen on like GMX, it's a lot higher rate of return than LPing on a spot exchange. Yeah. And then let me see. Oh, there's wallet connection support. So if you've peeked at the testnet changes in the web app, which is just on the top right in the dropdown, we added a lot of EVM wallets, right? So of course we have MetaMask, but went a step further and added Wallet Connect, Coinbase Wallet, and then actually single sign-on for social logins, like meaning you can sign in with Gmail, Twitter, WeChat, and like a plethora of other options that make it more accessible, I think, globally. So that was actually a lot of work, but yeah, something we're excited about. And then let's see, tool additions. Yeah, so if you're not familiar with the term subgraph, a subgraph is basically this tool you can use that indexes a lot of the EVM transactions and events that get released when contracts are called and lets you build up database tables and use them with GraphQL. So we got set up with that on the testnet already. And then when the mainnet's up, we'll have subgraphs there on mainnet too. So that's more useful for the application developers. But yeah, that was a big step. And then the other is the Nibiru has a native Oracle module, right, that has direct queries over the, Comet BFT RPC. We added an extension to the EVM that makes it accessible over the EVM. And then from the feedback of the applications building on top of Nibiru, a lot had their contracts set up to use like Chainlink or Pyth. So we're also adding, or have taken steps to add, I should say, compatibility to make it that you can access the Nibiru Oracle with the interface of Chainlink or Chainlink initially, but we'll also strive to put Pyth in there pretty soon after, which is really good because it means if you're using Chainlink, you can integrate seamlessly without updating your contracts. So you can use like already audited code. So those were some pretty big steps in terms of development milestones. Yeah, I think that's it.
Nice. One thing I'm really excited about is it's very simple, but just wallet connection support. Like for me, I've been in crypto since about late 2017, and I just love the SSO feature of Gmail. So I really think this feature is going to help, onboard more Web2 users into Web3. And then I also remember you mentioning that people will be able to use staked NIBI in Sai.fun. Can you elaborate on that a little bit more? Like, how is that possible?
Yeah, so basically it has how would I describe this? Okay, so I'll use the term market. Let's say that if you're trading Bitcoin USD or ETH USD, that's called a market, right? Or a perpetual market. So you can essentially, all of the LPs are putting capital toward what's called a vault. So if you're familiar with like GLP, there's the GLP pool, right? So Sai's version of that has a similar sort of contract that's holding the funds, except it's on a single collateral basis. So all of the USDC capital, it goes in the same vault. And then that's an LP for each market, right? But then there's no restriction necessarily that says you have to use USDC as the input. If somebody wanted to use volatile collateral as a deposit asset, it's perfectly valid to make markets for that. So that just adds another use case for NIBI if people can go in and use the NIBI directly to, speculate on Bitcoin or ETH or what have you. Especially in this case with the liquid staked asset, it means they can kind of stake, but then instead of just sitting there staking, they can actually go do stuff with their capital, right? So meaning hypothetically, if there was a Bitcoin bull market, they could go long Bitcoin before that, whilst with using the NIBI. So that's pretty powerful actually, because it's just adding use cases for things people can do with their capital. And then, another thing I didn't touch on is the Sai's got this whole like flame imagery going on, right? As the branding. Part of that is because of its, commitment to having like built-in burn mechanisms, right? So perpetual protocols gain a lot of or what is it? They have a fee as people trade. And then that comes back with, of course, liquidity providers get some of it, and then some just like flows to the protocol. So in Sai's case, a percentage of the fees collected by the actual protocol will go towards burning, buyback and burns for NIBI or for Sai if they launch a token. So that's actually pretty cool because it's ecosystem aligned from day one.
Love that. And then I also noticed that, Coded Estate has a pre-season mainnet campaign going on right now. And if users lock liquidity early, they're getting incentives in NIBI and Estate. But I also saw that liquidity will be used in Sai. Would love to learn more about that.
Yes, Sai, I mentioned, can have perpetual markets on any asset. So the project Coded Estate that builds has an RWA app they built where you can, rent, what do you say? I guess you can buy a percentage of real estate and then rent it out with other people. There's a few more things to their product, but it's a real world assets application in the real estate world, right? They've also worked to develop Oracle feeds on different real estate markets on Sai. So they've been in close partnership there. And so that campaign was something they initially started with Bybit, where you can lock liquidity to help bootstrap the platform as an LP, but then that team will put towards incentives, and then Nibiru is putting up incentives as well. And then they may have won some in the Bybit competition because they were a top 10 app there. So yeah, basically that's a liquidity lock campaign with like extra rewards. And then of course it just helps the application flourish day one.
Cool. And if you guys haven't participated in the Coded Estate campaign, the minimum is $10. So be sure you participate and take advantage of those extra rewards. I also know that they're giving out like an 8x multiplier for folks who lock liquidity early. So super cool. Honestly, like I'm pretty bullish on Coded Estate. Like from what I heard just talking to Lou, like in Q1 of next year, people are going to be able to start, renting directly from their platform. And all this is going to happen before token 2049 in Dubai. So really excited stuff coming from our ecosystem. All right. So what kinds of applications will be launching on Nibiru Unique?
Yeah. So one category is prediction markets, right? So if you're familiar with Polymarket, that umbrella of applications is called a prediction market. So there'll be both bracket-based kinds, which is like a tournament style, essentially where you a sequence of several predictions at one time and can win from that. And then the other is the classic like binary prediction markets, meaning, yes or no, Kamala or Trump, Tyson or Paul, that sort of deal. So that's pretty exciting because those are the newer class of apps that seem to, we see getting a ton of usage and activity on like Solana and other chains, right? Another is both exchanges for meme coins and then also a meme coin launchpad. So we'll basically have like the Omni Pump, which is similar to like the Pump.fun model, where except that instead of it being just any sort of launch protocol, it's required that people fair launch the token, meaning that the LP tokens used to seed it, a huge chunk of them, or I think all of them actually gets burned. So what that means is the initial liquidity doesn't have like that rug risk because you don't have to worry about who created it. It's kind of the LP pool gets created and then the meme coin's just alive and on the open market. It's not like centrally held by other people. So not investment advice, but that's good because essentially it'll make Nibiru a much better platform to both launch and speculate on meme coins. And then there's also various kinds of decentralized exchanges. So lending markets, so like we've got Nebula lending, Lairbank, and potentially other deployments there. But those are the two we work the most closely with. Astrovault, that you probably heard about if you came to the ecosystem spotlight. Just recently, they did a demo of some of their product on Discord, and we did a space with them actually. There's a Uniswap v3 deployment for concentrated liquidity with a router that makes it easier to find competitive pricing, both from that DEX and from other ones to put on the chain. And then, other projects we've mentioned like Euclid Protocol They have like a liquidity layer that makes it, in effect, like from a user perspective, you can kind of think of as like an aggregator across multiple chains. That's not really what the app is, but what you do with it essentially is you can take multiple and combine their liquidity on both one chain and from other chains to feel like one application and just better, essentially get better pricing. So that'll be pretty important for the ecosystem going forward. And a lot of the state for their multi-chain application like lives on Nibiru. So they're looking to launch next year as well. And yeah, I also didn't touch on lending markets. One aspect of these that can be pretty interesting is it allows you to like hold certain input capital, but then go to use another application that uses a different asset. So we gave the example before, like let's say on Sai perpetuals, and let's say you heard about this LP pool on the space a moment ago and wanted to go use it, but you're holding ETH or you're holding another asset. Well, you can go to, let's say, Layer Bank or Nebula and lend capital, borrow against it in whatever you need to deposit to do the LP in a different application. And then now you can still go earn those LP yields without getting rid of your original capital. So that'll be an important Lego with, other like more complex DeFi products or for yield vaults and other things like that. And let me see. Oh, the last thing is in NFT marketplace. So OpenMark is doing a deployment on Nibiru, and that'll be like the main NFT marketplace. We've also been working on the Genesis collection. I think we touched on this a while ago with talking about the airdrop, but essentially working with some artists there. Actually, August could explain more of this, but yeah, we've been working to get like the artwork done for that, and that's made pretty good headway, that'll launch on OpenMark along with other collections.
Yeah, I'm super excited to work on this NFT project with the team here. Can we reveal the artist? Not quite yet, but let me just say she's famous and she's a renowned artist based out of Japan. And her artwork just looks really sick. So I'm super, super excited for that. And then going back to...
Yeah, I was just going to say, it's not like basic 8-bit artwork. It's like really high quality stuff. Both August Noel and the team has been like sourcing, honestly, for like months, finding like the perfect artist. So we've been seeing the mock-ups and like, honestly, I'm super excited to get it out. We're also experimenting with the team at Omni. I'm not sure if the team touched on this, but they're the ones that are working on both a V2 DEX as well as the meme coin launchpad.
That's incredible. All right. Unique, what is one key takeaway you hope everyone leaves with today?
So I try to do these all off the cuff. So let me think. I guess maybe a reminder that in the case of Nibiru, the teams has been and will remain super accessible, right? Everyone's doxed. We're easy to reach. All the contributors are listed on the site. So although we've been seeing a bunch of random like rumors surface from people trying to FUD lately in the community chats, remember we're available right in the chat. So you can easily ask us anything, notably more so on Discord than Telegram. We'd see the notifications just because it's more curated. But yeah, if you have questions, simply ask. Yeah, we're easy to reach.
And beyond today's space, how can the community stay involved? I know that there's been a lot of fun initiatives going on, especially in our Discord as of late.
Yeah, so we have, of course, it's definitely helpful to, if you're trying to support the project, follow the apps that are launching in the ecosystem, tell people about them, but then also ask questions on anything you're curious about. There's certain community activities we have that are more laid back, namely like a poker night. Sometimes people will watch movies. There's a trivia night. And of course, just the ambassador program that's been ongoing and, improved a lot over time. So that gets you engaged where you're able to try applications early before they have their official launches. So yeah, for example, people have been able to test the meme coin launchpad and V2 DEX from Omni pretty early. And that's helpful for us. And then also good because they get to gain insight into like what's to come on the chain early. So yeah, I would get involved with those. We also do they're called chill sessions, but it's essentially, people just join a chat for a bit and go over really anything. It's like questions and the community members talk there. Those have been pretty interactive and nice. So I think it'd be good to, if you haven't already heard about those, join the Discord sessions instead of just the Twitter ones. Yeah, that's all I can think of for now.
Yeah, to add to that, the chill sessions are bi-weekly as well. And so it's an open forum usually hosted by Papaya, our Discord manager, myself, and a few others from the team. But we are, always happy to like answer, most questions that are asked in the Discord. And, I think what we'll also be doing going forward too is recording the sessions and also uploading them onto Twitter. So for folks that, can't make it to certain times, we'll try to get it up so you guys can kind of hear the bi-weekly updates that we have or that we'll share with the folks that join the call. So definitely make sure to join our Discord and then, kind of accrue those XP points in the Discord so you can earn a slot in the Anunnaki Blossom program. So like Unique mentioned, you'll be able to test out some of our early dApps. We'll start having folks try out. One of the prediction markets is brackets. We just announced the integration with. We'll definitely love to have folks spinning up some, basic predictions on there alongside OpenMark, our NFT marketplace. We'll also want people to start spinning up pseudo collections. So stay tuned for some of the data that we'll want those Anunnakis to start testing out.
Oh, also check out our ecosystem page. So it's been updating it to have more of like an app store kind of feel, taking cues from, like Steam and other stores like that. So a lot of the apps that we're mentioning just now, and then also that we'll be launching on top of the EVM are on the page right at the top. So like the, Astrovault, Sai, the Uniswap deployment, all of the prediction markets, everything's there. And as the partners like send over content and, we continue to update that, it'll come to life even more. So essentially you can get a sneak peek at a lot of the projects that are going to be launching.
Cool. And just going back to bracket, the predictions market, what I think is really cool about that is when you set up a bracketed style competition, you can actually select a specific number of winners. And you can set up a competition with your friends and then, 6, 3, or 2 people can win. So, that's a really cool, unique feature that hasn't been really done. Unique or Brandon, is there anything else you guys wanted to add just before we end the space?
Yeah. So in case folks weren't aware, we do have a good chunk of the team that's also currently in Bangkok for DevCon conference. We've been on the ground just trying to land some additional integration deals alongside, kind of getting like LP commitments and whatnot for the ecosystem. So things have been going well on that front. Have a good chunk of updates we'll want to share in our upcoming chill session on Discord. So guys, if you aren't already in our Discord, make sure to join that. We'll likely have some folks that are currently in Bangkok to kind of provide some updates on that front. So we'd love to share more about how we identify some projects that we want to, source or reach out to, kind of the BD, like the flow of like, from like start to like actual integration, like timeline wise, like, because I think it's good for, the followers of Nibiru to understand that a lot of these deals that we're sourcing or, these integrations aren't done overnight. If anything, these can take like upwards of like months from like just having the initial conversation, coming up with the actual plan and go to market of how we want the dApp to get like deployed to, actually getting like product market fit and getting, users onto the product itself. So definitely appreciate the patience as, we're launching a lot of different things simultaneously, but, continue to keep your guys' eyes peeled because we have a lot of big integrations that we have like yet to announce. So really am excited to be able to announce those when the time comes.
All right. We've covered a lot of ground during this space. Personally, really hyped for V2 of the chain. I want to thank everyone for joining and hanging out with us. Catch you guys in the next space.
Thanks, guys.
Bye, everyone.